In the quiet solitude of a late night, a peculiar sound echoes through a girl's room. The girl, known for her bravery, is alone, nestled in the sanctuary of her room. Amidst the comforting familiarity of her surroundings, an unfamiliar noise pierces the silence, like a whisper in the wind, a rustling leaf, or the low growl of a distant storm. The sound, erratic and uncanny, makes her heart pound in her chest like a drumbeat in the night. She tries to ignore it, to convince herself that it's just the house settling, the wind playing tricks, or perhaps her imagination running wild. But the noise persists, growing louder, more pronounced and undeniably terrifying. It's a symphony of scratches, whispers, and inexplicable sounds that seem to dance around her room, as if playing a cruel game of hide and seek. The fear, once a whisper in her mind, now screams at her, compelling her to switch on the light. She reaches out, her hand shaking, and floods the room with light. The shadows retreat, and the sounds, those haunting sounds, cease. She scans the room, her eyes darting from corner to corner, under the bed, to the closet, seeking the source of the noise. But all she finds is silence and emptiness. Her room, once her safe haven, now feels eerie and alien. The absence of the sound is almost as chilling as the sound itself. The silence is thick, heavy, and unnerving, wrapping itself around her like a shroud. A sigh of relief escapes her lips, but it's a hollow victory. The fear still lingers, a bitter aftertaste. The light, she thinks, has won the battle, pushing away the darkness and its strange, terrifying sounds. Yet the moment the light goes out, the haunting sounds return, as if darkness itself was their source. The symphony resumes, the unseen orchestra of the night playing its unsettling melody, leaving her to wonder what horrors the night still holds. In the pitch-black room, a face begins to materialize in the corner, a chilling sight that freezes the girl in fear. The room is so dark that it feels like a void that is broken by a slowly forming, eerie presence. It starts as an ambiguous shadow, barely visible, but with each passing second, it becomes more defined, more real. Imagine the face of your worst nightmare. Now imagine it coming to life. The face that is forming in the corner of the girl's room is worse than any nightmare. It's a face that would make even the bravest soul tremble in terror. Its eyes are two black pits, so deep and dark that they seem to absorb all light and hope. The mouth is a twisted, grotesque grin, revealing jagged, sharp teeth that glint in the little light that dares to touch them. This isn't just a face. It's the embodiment of primal fear, a representation of every horror story ever told. It's the kind of face that plays on your mind in the darkest hours of the night, the kind that makes you pull your blanket tighter around you, praying for the safety of daylight. The girl is paralyzed, rooted to the spot as the face evolves, transforming from a mere specter into a full-bodied figure. Its form is as chilling as its face, a towering, hulking silhouette that seems to suck the warmth out of the room. It's a figure that exudes an aura of malevolence, a figure that is the very definition of a nightmare come to life. Despite the terror gripping her heart, the girl can't look away. She's like a moth drawn to a flame, unable to resist the terrifying allure of the figure. Every instinct is screaming at her to run, to hide, but she can't. She's caught in the terrifying spectacle, mesmerized by her own fear. As the figure lumbers towards her bed, she can feel a cold dread creeping up her spine. Each step it takes echoes in the silence of the room, a chilling reminder of the horror that is about to unfold. Suddenly, the figure lunges, grabbing her leg and dragging her off the bed. Her heart pounds like a drum, the rhythm of fear echoing in her ears. She's caught in a nightmare that's all too real, a horrifying dance with a spectral partner that has no intention of letting her go. She fights back, her fists flailing in the darkness. Her nails scrape against something eerie and cold, a sensation like scratching a tombstone. She can feel the figure's claws, sharp as razors, cutting into her skin, each slash a fiery line of agony. It's as if she's being drawn into an abstract painting, her own blood being the crimson strokes on the canvas of her terror. Her voice shatters the silence, a scream that echoes through the house, a desperate plea for help. It bounces off the walls, and for a moment it seems to drown out the monstrous sounds of the figure. But the figure doesn't stop. It continues its attack, relentless, its claws slashing and tearing at her. She kicks, she punches, she thrashes, but it's like fighting a shadow. Her blows pass through the figure, leaving her feeling even more helpless. It's a futile struggle against an enemy that seems to be both there and not there, a terrifying paradox that defies understanding. Her mind races, thoughts jumbled and chaotic. She prays for a miracle, for a savior to burst through the door, for the nightmare to end. But the figure keeps coming, its claws never ceasing their horrifying work. Her body is a battleground, her skin torn and ravaged. The pain is unbearable, but she continues to fight, her spirit refusing to surrender. She's a warrior in a war she didn't choose, her bedroom turned into a horrifying arena. She fights futilely against the creature, her screams of terror filling the night. But even as she grapples with the horror in the darkness, a new terror is about to dawn. One that will cast a chilling light on the true nature of this terrifying attack. Her parents, awakened by her screams, rush into her room, fear etched on their faces. The screams cut through the stillness of the night like a blade, sending chills down their spine. The horrifying sounds echo through the corridors of the house, each one more desperate, more chilling than the last. It was a nightmare come alive, a terror that no parent should ever have to witness. Their hearts pound against their chests as they sprint towards their daughter's room. The house, once a sanctuary, now feels like a labyrinth, each corner darker and more sinister than the next. But they press on, driven by a primal instinct to protect their child. Bursting into the room, they find themselves in a scene straight out of a horror film. The light switch is flipped on, casting eerie shadows on the walls and revealing the horrifying truth. Their daughter is on the floor, her body covered in blood. The sight is so gruesome, so utterly terrifying that it takes a moment for them to fully comprehend the horror before them. They had come expecting a monster, a creature of the night that had somehow infiltrated their home. They had expected to find a manifestation of the evil that had been tormenting their daughter, the source of the chilling noises and scratches that had been haunting her nights. They had braced themselves for a fight, ready to face whatever horror had dared to harm their child. But what they find is something entirely different, something far more chilling. The terror, the monster they had been fearing, it wasn't an intruder from the outside, it was their daughter herself. There on the floor, covered in blood, she clutches a pair of scissors. The truth hits them like a punch to the gut, leaving them breathless. But instead of a monster, they find their daughter clutching a pair of scissors. In the harsh light, the horrifying truth dawns on them. The room, once filled with the echoes of their daughter's desperate screams, now resonates with a deafening silence. The only sounds that can be heard are the hushed whispers of disbelief and the quiet sobbing of a girl too scared to scream. The parents, their hearts pounding in their chests, look at their daughter writhing on the floor, her hands clutching a pair of scissors. The sight of her, covered in her own blood, sends waves of shock and horror coursing through their veins. They had rushed in expecting to confront a monstrous intruder, but instead, they find their daughter alone and terrified, the architect of her own suffering. As the reality sinks in, a chilling sensation wraps around their hearts. They had been living under the illusion that the danger lurked outside their home, in the shadows of the night. But the truth is far more unsettling. The danger was within. It was their own flesh and blood. Their eyes fixed on the pair of scissors, now stained with their child's blood. These were not the tools of a monstrous entity, but of a terrified girl, caught in the grip of her own fear and imagination. They realized that the scratches, the blood, the screams were all self-inflicted. Their daughter, the victim, was also the perpetrator. The room, once her sanctuary, had become a battlefield. Her bed, once a place of comfort and rest, had become the front line. And the enemy was not a monster lurking in the shadows, but the fear and panic that had taken root in her mind. The parents are left in a state of disbelief, their minds struggling to comprehend the gravity of the situation. The horror of the scenario is far from the monstrous invasion they had initially feared. It is a chilling revelation that leaves them grappling with the haunting reality of their daughter's mental state. In the chilling silence that follows, they are left grappling with the haunting reality of the situation.